Okay, we're going to continue on in our Father's Word today. This is 1 Kings chapter 11, verse 3. And he had 700 wives, princesses, and 300 concubines. And his wives turned away his heart. For it came to pass, when Solomon was old, that his wives turned away his heart after other gods. And his heart was not perfect with the Lord his God, as was the heart of David, his father. David never turned away from God. For Solomon went after Ashtaroth. That's Ishtar, pagan sex and fertility goddess. Built a shrine right there on the Mount of Olives, right across from where God's Ark of the Covenant was located. So Solomon wasn't so smart after all. He worshipped little g gods. For Solomon went after Ashtaroth, the goddess of the Zidonians, and after Milcom, the abomination of the Amorites. And Solomon did evil in the sight of the Lord, and went not fully to the Lord, as did David his father. Then did Solomon build an high place for Chemosh, the abomination of Moab, in the hills that is before Jerusalem, and for Molech, the abomination of the children. Now with Chemosh and Molech, that's just like Dagon. They took God's little children and threw them into Chemosh, Molech, and Dagon's altar fires. Then they had sex orgies out in the groves. With Ashtaroth and Easter, they just had sex orgies in the groves. They didn't kill the babies. Now this is 1 Kings chapter 11, verse 8. And likewise did he for all his strange wives, which burned incense and sacrificed unto their gods. And the Lord was angry with Solomon, because his heart was turned from the Lord, God of Israel, which had appeared unto him twice, and had commanded him concerning this thing, that he should not go after other gods. But he kept not that which the Lord commanded. Wherefore the Lord said unto Solomon, Forasmuch as this is done of thee, and thou hast not kept my covenant and my statutes, which I have commanded thee, I will surely rend the kingdom from thee, and will give it to thy servant. Now, when Solomon died, Rehoboam, Solomon's son, took over the Levites, the priest. He took over Judah, Jerusalem, and he took over Benjamin. And the 10 northern tribes were taken by Jeroboam. Jeroboam was not the son of Solomon. He was hiding over in Egypt from Solomon, because Solomon would have killed Jeroboam. And then Jeroboam built two golden calves, one in Dan and one in Bethel, to worship Satan with. So the 10 northern tribes, God sent Mosul, Iraq, Nineveh, the first great city. The people, the Ninevites, the Assyrians, figured out how to do agriculture and make enough groceries to feed a bunch of people. And Nineveh was the first great city. Mosul, Iraq, northern Iraq, the Ninevites, the Assyrians. Ben-Hadad was the first, Sennacherib was the last of the great leaders of the Assyrians. It took them 200 years to take the 10 northern tribes of Israel, and they were sold into slavery to the Greeks mostly, the stonemasons and the iron workers, the builders, the master builders. And after a period of years of slavery to the Greeks, they won their freedom and crossed over the Caucasus Mountains. They're called Caucasians, the master builders. The tribe of Manasseh ended up here in the United States. Ephraim, the United Kingdom, Australia, New Zealand, and Great Britain. And then the tribe of Reuben ended up mostly in France. Now the Pope had all the Jews of Spain with the Spanish Inquisition. He had all the Jews of Spain burned at the stake or killed. And most likely that was the tribe of Reuben also. But I haven't been able to find any information telling me which tribe was in Spain. But France and Spain are right there next to each other. And the other 7 tribes ended up going mostly to Poland and the Ukraine. So when you got Russia and the Ukraine, you got Jacob and Esau. The Edomites, the descendants of Esau, are the Russians, the hairy-armed, hairy-chested, red Russian bears. Now, how did the Edomites end up in Russia? 586 BC. Nebuchadnezzar went to Jerusalem the 3rd time and burned the gates down and knocked a bunch of the walls down and destroyed the temple, Solomon's temple, destroyed it. And then the Edomites saw what was going on, so they decided they'd go over to Jerusalem and help Nebuchadnezzar sack Jerusalem. Well, that made God very angry. So God sent the Nabatean Arabs, one of the 12 princes of Arabia, from Ishmael's, the 12 princes of Arabia, the 12 tribes, Arabian tribes. So Ishmael was Abraham's oldest son. Remember, he was 13 years old and he got circumcised with Abraham, and then Abraham did what Sarah wanted him done. He kicked Ishmael and Hagar, his mother, the Egyptian handmaid, he kicked them out in the desert, and gave them 1 sack of goat skin of water and a loaf of bread. And Abraham was a rich man. But anyway, that's what Abraham did, because Sarah wanted Hagar to be gone, because they just couldn't get along anymore. So Ishmael and the 12 princes of Arabia, and you got the Nabatean Arabs from Yemen. They were spice traders, very, very rich camel jockeys. Got big, long lines of camels out in the desert. Nabatean Arabs came to Edom and destroyed the Edomites. And the Edomites ended up way up north in coal country, in the North Mountains. Gog. Yep, way up north in the mountains, Moscow. The Volga River is where the Edomites ended up. Esau means hairy. It also means red. The hairy-armed, hairy-chested, red Russian bears ended up in the Soviet Union, way up there in the coal country. Okay, we're going to continue on here. This is 1 Kings 11, verse 12. Notwithstanding in thy days, I will not do it for David thy father's sake, but I will rend it out of the hand of thy son. Howbeit, I will not rend away all the kingdom, but I will give 1 tribe to thy son for David my servant's sake, and for Jerusalem's sake, which I have chosen. And the Lord stirred up an adversary unto Solomon, Hadad, the Edomite. He was of the king's seed in Edom. For it came to pass, when David was in Edom, and Joab, the captain of the host, was gone up to bury the slain, after he was smitten every male in Edom, for 6 months did Joab remain there with all Israel, until he had cut off every male in Edom, that Hadad fled, he and certain Edomites of his father's servants with him, to go into Egypt, Hadad being yet a little child. And they arose out of Medan, and came to Paran, and they took men with them out of Paran, and they came to Egypt unto Pharaoh king of Egypt, which gave him a house, and appointed him